In a world where people chase shadows, chasing approval, chasing things that can be taken away, there comes a moment when a man stops running. He stands still, he looks within, and in that silence he discovers something unshakable himself. When you truly know who you are, when your worth is no longer hanging on what you own, who you please, or what the world thinks, fear starts to lose its grip. Loss no longer feels like the end, because you realize nothing essential can be taken from you. The real treasure is not out there, it's the man you've become in here. True identity is the foundation of fearlessness, because until a person understands who they really are, they will always be at the mercy of the world's shifting winds. Most people live in reaction to circumstances. When life gives them praise, they feel valuable. When life brings rejection, they feel worthless. They are built on unstable ground, and any loss, criticism, or challenge shakes them to their core. But the man who has found his true identity operates from a completely different place. His worth is not up for negotiation. It is not something that can be raised or lowered by outside forces. It is something rooted deep within, unshakable, unchangeable. When you know who you are, fear loses its power because fear feeds on uncertainty. Fear asks, what if you're not good enough? What if you can't handle it? What if they take everything away? But if you have already settled those questions in your heart, if you have already looked at yourself and said, "This is who I am and nothing can take that from me," then fear has no leverage. It cannot threaten you with loss, because you are no longer defined by what you could lose. People often believe that fearlessness comes from courage or strength, but true fearlessness comes from clarity. When you are clear about your identity, you no longer need to perform for the world. You no longer need to wear masks to gain approval or manipulate situations to protect your image. That clarity becomes your shield. You can walk into situations that terrify others because your sense of self is not tied to the outcome. Win or lose, succeed or fail, you remain the same person. Without a true identity, you will always be chasing something, money, recognition, relationships, in the hope that they will tell you who you are. But this pursuit keeps you fragile, because anything given by the world can be taken by the world. The job title that once made you proud can be stripped away. The relationship that made you feel secure can end overnight. The applause that filled you with confidence can turn into silence or criticism. If these things are the pillars holding up your self-worth, then you are building your life on sand. True identity is like bedrock. When storms come, you may feel the pressure, but you do not collapse. You may grieve the loss of things or people, but you do not lose yourself in the process. You can adapt, rebuild, and move forward because your foundation remains intact. This is why some people, when they face massive setbacks, emerge stronger instead of broken. It's not because they were lucky or unaffected. It's because their sense of who they are was never attached to what they had. This kind of identity is not found in the mirror of public opinion or in the labels that society gives you. It is not even found in the roles you play, father, leader, friend, professional, because roles can change and they will change. True identity is deeper. It is the unchanging awareness of your value, your principles, your essence. It's the understanding that even stripped of every title, possession, and comfort, you still have the same worth you had before. When a man stands in that truth, he stops fearing the future. Loss no longer feels like the destruction of self, but simply the removal of what is temporary. Fear's power lies in convincing you that without certain things you are nothing. But when you know you are already whole, already enough, fear's threats become empty. It can only take what you were never depending on in the first place. This is why people who have found their true identity often appear calm in the face of challenges that would make others panic. They are not in denial, and they are not pretending to be strong. They simply understand that circumstances do not define them. The world may shift, the rules may change, people may leave, but they remain grounded. This grounding allows them to think clearly when others are overwhelmed. It gives them the freedom to take risks, to step into the unknown, to embrace change without being paralyzed by it. The journey to finding this identity is not easy. It requires stripping away illusions, confronting your fears, and facing the truth about what has been shaping your sense of self. Many discover that they have been living according to other people's expectations for so long that they do not even know who they are without those influences. But the process of breaking free from that is where fearlessness begins. Because once you see yourself clearly, without the filters of status, possessions, or approval, you are no longer controlled by the fear of losing them. It is not that life will stop testing you, it won't. But the tests will no longer define you. You will still face failures, but you will not call yourself a failure. You will still experience loss, but you will not lose yourself. You will still have moments of doubt, but they will not shake your core. This is the power of true identity. It is the reason why some stand firm while others crumble under the same pressures. It is the silent, invisible strength that makes a man untouchable where it matters most, in the mind and in the heart. Self-worth cannot be stolen or diminished because it is not something that exists in the hands of others to give or take. Many people live as if their value is a currency controlled by the world, something that rises when they are praised and falls when they are criticized. They become dependent on the approval, acceptance, and validation of those around them, not realizing that they have placed their identity in a position where it can be manipulated, reduced, or even destroyed. The truth is, self-worth is an internal reality. It does not belong to society, to relationships, or to circumstances. It is not a product of your achievements, your possessions, or your appearance. Those things can enhance your life, but they cannot define your value. When you build your sense of worth on things that can be measured, compared, or taken away, you set yourself up for constant insecurity. You will always be looking over your shoulder, wondering if someone else will outshine you, take your place, or strip away what you have worked for. You will feel threatened by other people's success, because it will seem to make you smaller by comparison. You will feel crushed by failure, because it will appear to confirm your deepest fears about yourself. This is the trap of conditional worth. It ties your identity to the fragile and temporary conditions of life. True self-worth is untouchable because it is not based on performance or possession. It is based on the unchanging truth of who you are. It does not fluctuate when circumstances change. It does not shrink when you face rejection, nor does it inflate when you receive praise. When your worth comes from within, it becomes independent of the world's shifting opinions. You can receive recognition without becoming addicted to it, and you can endure criticism without being broken by it. This independence from external validation is not arrogance. It is strength. It allows you to walk into any environment, whether hostile or supportive, without losing yourself. You do not bend your values to fit in, and you do not compromise your integrity to gain acceptance. You live from a place of authenticity, knowing that your value was complete before anyone had an opinion about you. This kind of inner security cannot be stolen because no one else has the authority to define it in the first place. There are people who lose everything: their career, their home, their status, and yet they walk with the same dignity they had before. It's not because they are immune to pain or blind to reality. It's because their worth was never anchored to those external things. They know that losing possessions does not mean losing value. They understand that worth is not in what they hold, but in who they are. This mindset is what allows some to rise again after devastating losses, while others remain broken when their identity is tied to what they can no longer keep. When you realize that your self-worth cannot be diminished, you stop living in fear of being less than. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that worth is not a competition. You stop chasing perfection because you see that your value does not depend on flawless performance. You stop trying to prove yourself over and over because you know you were enough before you even began. This is the kind of liberation that changes how you move through the world. You are no longer acting from desperation, but from confidence. This truth also shifts how you respond to failure. When worth is tied to results, every mistake feels like proof that you are not enough. It becomes a personal attack on your identity. But when worth is secure, failure becomes feedback instead of condemnation. You can learn from it, grow from it, and move on without carrying the weight of shame. You can admit when you are wrong without it shaking your sense of self. This creates resilience, because the core of who you are remains intact regardless of the outcome. The world will always try to attach labels to you: successful, unsuccessful, attractive, unattractive, worthy, unworthy. If you allow those labels to dictate how you see yourself, you give away the keys to your identity. People can strip away titles, spread lies, or withhold recognition, but they cannot touch the truth of your worth unless you hand it over to them. The moment you stop seeking permission to feel valuable is the moment you reclaim your freedom. Understanding this changes the way you handle relationships as well. You no longer tolerate situations where you have to prove your worth over and over to be accepted. You no longer stay where you are diminished, because you understand that staying in such environments is not humility, it is forgetting who you are. You can give love and respect freely without making your value dependent on whether it is returned. This gives you the strength to walk away from what is unhealthy without feeling like you have lost yourself in the process. When you internalize that your worth is untouchable, life's highs and lows stop controlling you. Success becomes something to enjoy, not something to rely on for identity. Criticism becomes an opinion, not a verdict. Loss becomes an event, not a definition. You live with a quiet strength that does not need to be announced or defended. The people around you feel it, even if they cannot put it into words. It is the kind of presence that comes from knowing that nothing external has the power to reduce who you are at your core.